So we've moved up the field a little bit. We've come to the NCS project plots now, Nitrogen Climate Smart project. We've talked about this quite a lot on the podcast, Becky, and in our magazines, etc. Hopefully people are aware of it, but essentially trying to displace imported soya here and our reliance on sort of inorganic fertiliser as well. So tell us a bit about the project and what we're looking at today.
Yeah, NCS has been running for 4 years now. We're coming towards the end of the project next year. It's quite a broad project, really. You've explained quite well what the aims are. So we are looking to replace soya with homegrown protein, in particular peas and beans, and focused really on the animal feed markets, where we're also doing quite a lot of work in one of the work packages to look at how different animals respond to having higher levels of faba bean, particularly in their diet. So that's going quite well. There's been some really positive results from those trials, and we've got poultry, dairy, beef in the mixture there. And all of that is going to be published towards the end of the project. We're currently in the process of finishing off the cost-benefit analysis as well, and the Anderson Centre are completing that this year. It's a big project with 18 partners in it, all playing very important roles, and a big part of that, as well as the animal trials, is the arable trial. So we've got to at least be able to provide the animal feed markets with enough consistent supply of homegrown proteins to replace soya. The overall objective of the project is to reduce climate impact and to reduce emissions from UK agriculture. And again, this project is funded by DEFRA through Innovate UK, and co-funded by the industrial partners in the consortium. So at PGRO, we're really focused on how beans impact on rotations, and particularly in terms of benefits to the soil, including the nitrogen benefit to the following crop, and how we can improve production and how we can measure those benefits as well. So when we look at this trial here at PGRO, we're in our third and final year of trials. We are comparing winter wheat, winter beans, spring beans, and a winter wheat and winter bean intercrop. And in this final year, we've got also a winter wheat plots with no nitrogen on them as well, just to give us a baseline, really. We're measuring quite a lot of different metrics within these trials, and we're not the only ones doing arable trials. There's Pulse Pioneers and one of the work packages all doing their on-farm trials. We've got Cranfield University doing some indoor work looking at the same types of things, so measuring nitrogen movement in soils and benefits to the following crop. We've also got GWCT that have been conducting trials looking at a pea intercrop. So quite a lot of work going on. Agri are doing a huge amount of work looking at dose rate response to nitrogen as well. So we will have a combined set of results at the end of the project for the arable trials, and we will also include the James Hutton Institute's work that they've been doing on their Centre for Sustainable Cropping. So lots of data. Yes, lots of data, yeah. We've got various sensors in here. We do soil testing right at the beginning of the season, so that's for all nutrients, and also soil mineral nitrogen, so that's a 0 to 90 centimetre depth measurement, where that's possible at least anyway. We then put sensors in, so we've got some nitrogen blades in these plots as well. They're measuring nitrogen movement in the soil. It is a bit dependent on soil moisture, so but the blades that we've got in this year have been really successful. We've got soil moisture sensors, and GWCT at Loddington have been doing our gaseous emissions for us as well, so we're measuring actual emissions from the different plots. So lots of measurements to come out. We've obviously collected a lot of data already again this year, and we've got data from 2 years, so that'll all be compiled and published towards the end of the project.
And what have we got here to show people today then? There's a bit of a mix here of...
There is, yes. We've certainly got some...
beans,
yeah, so winter beans this year, certainly on this site, we've had lowish moisture levels here, and it's quite a sandy soil type. And as many growers will know, we had some real issues in January and February with high levels of chocolate spot infection because of the persistent rain that we had at that time. So we had about 6 weeks of rainfall. So chocolate spot was an issue. I know across the country some of those crops will have recovered quite well, but you can see when you look at these that they're quite short still. They're struggling with moisture and senescing very rapidly here, and we are still only 30th of June. Yeah. So yeah, not done so well this year, perhaps as they have in previous years, but that's the whole point of trials really, isn't it? Yeah, you have trials over multiple years so that you get different results and different responses. We have also here, we've got winter wheat with nitrogen as a sole crop, and you can see next to it we've got a winter wheat and winter bean mixture that has had no nitrogen applied to it. So you can see the difference for the wheat for sure.
There, The wheat's a lot taller and
it is,
more golden.
Yeah, so you can see the contrast there. And the real aim, as I said, is to focus on what happens to the nitrogen and what is the benefit to the following crop with these trials. So
again, we were just talking before we turned the recording equipment on that actually the intercrop that we're looking at here, which is beans and wheat, in previous years when you've done it, you've seen different results every time on that in terms of how the beans have competed or the wheat's competed, and that's quite interesting to see that year.
It is, and that's definitely a factor of soil type and moisture. So in the first year, on a different site, about 20 minutes from here, we saw beans that were as tall as I am, and the wheat didn't really do much because it was so outcompeted by the beans. Last year, a little bit more normal, I'd say, so they both crops did reasonably well, and then this year you can see the beans have done really not as well, and the wheat's, although it's not had nitrogen on it, is doing slightly better. So yeah, some real differences across the years for sure, and it's why we tend to do trials for 3 to 4 years really, just to get that variation across the years.
Yeah, so over the past few years of working on trials for the NCS, you've had different results. What is it that you've kind of learned so far, and what data have you gathered that might give you some insights into kind of what's next after this project finishes?
We're looking at, as we've mentioned, the overall benefits in the rotation. So it is rotational trials that we're focused on, and that's true across all the partners. We're still dealing with some of the data, of course. One of the other things that we have done, we've been based at the Dyson site since 2015. So we're also looking at historic data particularly for SMN, so soil mineral nitrogen, and going back 5 years from each site to see what levels of N we've got following those crops. And obviously we have to factor in any field operations that have happened in that period as well. So, but that I think will really help us look at how these crops impact on rotations and why growers should put them into rotations for the many different reasons that they benefit a rotation, as well as obviously if you've got animals on farm, feeding them to your animals as well. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do as we come up to the end of the project. The project finishes in April 2027, so all of our data's got to be analysed and summarised in that time. Part of the process of this project has also been to provide these short farm practice abstracts, so many of the farm growers and as well as the researchers have published short abstracts to demonstrate what they've been doing, what the results are, what the benefits are, as well as some of the negative impacts as well if they've happened. So all of those are available on the Pulse PEP site, and there's many different points of access to get information about NCS trials and grower trials as well.
Yeah, the Pulse PEP website's a good resource for all of that. Obviously, the NCS from Soil to Sustainability conference as well was a really good summary of where we are, particularly as you mentioned on some of the feeding trials in broilers. That was really interesting back in sort of late January, early February, whenever that conference was. So, yeah, plenty to go on. What do you hope the legacy will be of this project? Let's say everybody's put a huge amount of work into this, an enormous number of partners, tons of data, tons of farm trials and involvement there. You know, this project set out to, with really big ambitions, really, to displace a lot of soya and to increase the bean area in the UK. So obviously that's the aim. Is that sort of what you hope the legacy will be?
Yes, definitely. The legacy we hope is that we'll increase pulse area generally over the next 10 years, that growers will be able to see the benefits of having them in rotations, and that the retail industry, you know, the people that are buying produce, whether that's animal or plant-based produce, see the value of replacing soya, which I think they certainly do, and that they drive that market for increasing homegrown proteins in animal feeds.